What's going on, people? Welcome to United View. Good morning. What an evening. Welcome to your latest dose of Manchester United Man United transfer news. But like we always say, there's always something else in there. It isn't always
just another day.
Exactly, just another day. Welcome to community. Good morning. It is the morning of our 100k party as well. That is later on tonight in London. Like I said, there was a few extra tickets due to high demand, so grab those. The links in the video description below. Last couple. I can't wait to see you guys there. Richard Arnold. Wow. I know a lot of people have obviously been reacting to this over last night and taking it all in and stuff like that. We've done the same, and this is when we do our videos at 9 in the morning. So we thought we had to do it now in this slot. I mean, everybody's talking about it. It was compelling viewing. I hadn't been on Twitter for a few hours. Thought, let me just see what the latest news is, see if we signed anyone, see if there's a breakthrough. And I just see this shaky video underneath a table, thinking, what's going on here? What's this?
Surrounded by beers.
Surrounded by beers. I honestly thought it was a fake video at the beginning. Obviously, clearly it's not. And Richard Arnold has addressed the fans. Owen, let's get straight into this and cover this from all angles. No hysteria, no jokes, no laughs. Let's just actually get into this and dissect how you're seeing it, how I'm seeing it, because obviously people want to hear from us. A lot of people have had their say on this online, and I wanted to wait until we did this because a lot of people were asking me on Twitter, what do you think, Flex? Go live, do this, do that. And I thought, we'll take our time and we'll come this morning. Begin, Owen. I mean, let's go with some of the quotes first and then we'll start dissecting it.
Yeah, so obviously these group of fans were discussing a lot of things, and a lot of discussion points came out. I think people are focusing on transfers, but it wasn't just transfers that was discussed. It was all of the above. It was transfers, it was leaks, it was social media admins, it was training ground, it was stadium, it was predecessors in Richard Arnold's role. So there is so many quotes to get into. So I think one of the big headline ones was about the spending at Manchester United over the course of the last decade. And Richard Arnold said, quote, "We spent over £1 billion over the last 10 years, more than anyone in Europe. I'm not thrilled with where we are. What's happened is we've effing burnt through cash. You can't go to our training ground and say, by the way, show me where that £1 billion is here. I don't think we've done well with the money we've spent." And he also said, talking about the owners, "I'm not here to defend Joel Glazer himself. You must speak to him yourself. You've come here to make your views known, and I respect that. We've blown through an enormous amount of money. For this summer, the money that the manager and director of football wants is there. For the future, investing in a new stadium to do the latest and greatest £250 million training ground, we've got to do something. We've got to get investors in. I need to do that for what I want for the club. I've got to have more cash than we have now. No club has the money to do a new stadium without getting it from someone. You either borrow it or someone invests it."
Wow, it was scathing. I think the first thing before we both go in back and forth with this is how this came about, though, because there's so much on the internet now saying fair play to him. He's come down, he spoke to the fans, he decided to meet them at the pub. That's proper old school, that's proper geezer. That, we've got score to settle. Let's go down the pub, let's have a few beers, let's have a talk. Do you know what I mean? Which I do commend him for that. People are saying, look at how long Ed Woodward was there. He would never have done anything like that. And also look to the point that it got to with Ed Woodward. But on the other side of it is, you could say, well, would Richard Arnold have been in that pub if he didn't know fans were coming to his house? Would Richard Arnold have been so forthcoming in sorting out addressing the fans or having a fan meet in person and I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but he probably feared a bit for his safety. And I know you could say, well, he didn't because he went to the pub. But initially, instead of coming to my house and protesting, let's just keep it away from my house, my family, where I live.
Well, I was going to say, maybe not his, but certainly his family's. Maybe he thought, I tell you what, if they're angry at anyone, they're angry at me. They just shouldn't be angry at my family.
Exactly.
So I'm going to remove my family from that situation and confront them
and go to the pub. So I do commend him for that, even though, because there could be some people saying, well, he was never going to do that. That was just because they came to his house. Yeah, true. But he still did go, right, I'm going to go to the pub. And actually in the video, although it's typical Man United, though, the fact that our CEO is down his local pub drinking Amstel, just revealing what's going on and basically telling Barcelona, if you want to look at it that way, yeah, we've got 200 million. We're working on Frankie, mate. Yeah. Barcelona go, oh, lovely. Cheers. That hardball. Now, that kind of weakens your negotiations from that point. But from our point of view, it depends what you want to take from this. And that's why this is so multifaceted. From a pure fan frustration point of view, when you look at the lack of communication through the club, the shit job that Ed Woodward done, which, may we add, Richard Arnold was alluding to, you know, in some other quotes we'll get to. When you look at that and the lack of communication that we've had with directly with the club, okay, it's not perfect. Okay, we don't want to see our CEO drinking beers with fans being secretly recorded. Okay, those fans are probably a little bit bad. Well, they are. They're not really trustworthy. If he's come down there off his own back, the respect wasn't really there in order to privately record it and then put it out. But at the same time, we would never have seen it. And if somebody would have just went to the internet saying, I've just been with Richard Arnold having beers, who would have believed them? So you have to take that into account as well. You have to say, at least we got something. And it seems to have gone down pretty well.
I mean, that's the thing. I think you make a really good point there, Flex, is that it's a huge discussion point because there are literally so many things to take out of it. Even if you take the quotes out of it, just the situation. If you just remove the quotes, and you're not even talking about the quotes, just the situation in itself, like you said about the CEO of a multi-billion-pound football club was going to be protested at his house. So he went down to a pub to speak to fans. That was then privately recorded. And in the quotes, you want to bring the quotes back in, he's alluding to leaks. He's alluding to investors. He's talking about fans not liking the owners. He's talking about his predecessors. My first reaction when we spoke yesterday, because it was funny, actually, because I sent it to you, then you sent it to me at the same time. I think we literally saw it at the same time. And my initial reaction was just, what other club does this happen at?
Exactly.
And again, that's not even a joke. It is like, it's just a giant soap opera. It is giant soap opera. And if you want to talk about ramifications as to, you know, how that's going to be received in, you know, negotiations or in, you know, sponsorships or in terms of anything else, I don't know how that's going to be out, because it's somewhat unprecedented, this whole incident in itself. I think, like you were saying, I think the general response has been, you know, fair play. I think the general response has been some of the stuff you were saying, fair enough. You know, I think also some people may have to realize that in some of the more bigger aspects of things he's saying, when he's talking about, you know, structural changes at the club, whether it's facilities like training ground, stadiums, when he's talking about, you know, the social media side of things, or he's talking about leaks being removed from the dressing room, or he's talking about finances for the future, that's not a short-term thing. That does take a lot of time, and it's very difficult to hold someone to task for that. Now, you could argue a good thing about this video is that in 2 or 3 years' time, if we don't have those things, or there is no difference, you can point back to it as this is an article of history, and now of going, well, you said here that this was going to happen. And maybe that's what some people, I think some people are also saying, that whilst they don't agree with the secret recording, and honestly, I don't, because I do think that's a violation of sort of trust and confidence, and someone that has kind of met them halfway, where people like Ed Woodward wouldn't have in the past. But you could argue in a couple of years' time, if things are no different, if things are worse, then you can point to that and say, well, you said this, you know, and you were saying this was going to happen at the time. What happened to those things? But it will have ramifications also in the sense of, you mentioned the Barcelona deal. He's outwardly said, we're going after Frankie de Jong. People are in Barcelona. John Murtaugh's up from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night getting the deal done. It's not about money. We've got money.
I remember we've got 200 M's there.
Yeah, ready I remember when Ed Woodward did that first interview when he was the CEO in the past.
Yeah.
When he went, we've got a blank checkbook, and it made it really difficult for us to sign players because everyone went, well, you've got this blank checkbook then.
Because ideally, he wouldn't have wanted, that's what I'm saying. Ideally, Richard Arnold would not have wanted, definitely wouldn't have wanted to be in public talking to fans, you know, quite loosely. It's refreshing to us because we're your average Joe Blogs. We're not millionaires working within that sphere. We're not transfer negotiators from other clubs. We're not working in there. It's
Yeah.
refreshing
And
to us to hear,
I don't
hear him.
think he talks. I don't think he talks down to them. Importantly, in that, I
No, he
think he
doesn't.
talks to
No, he
them
doesn't.
definitely on a level.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
ideally, the CEO of Man United doesn't, from a professional basis, to his peers within the industry. Ideally, he doesn't want to be seen down the pub talking quite loosely, swearing, saying "fucking, like, we fucking burnt through cash, mate." Like he doesn't, oh, fucking, do you want me signing the players? That sounds a bit similar. He doesn't want to be on camera saying that, in that format. But for us as fans, we have to look at it like it was refreshing. And what was interesting is, before we get into more quotes and things that he said and talk about what that means, because there's so much to get into here, I wanted to say a little bit about what the club said about it afterwards, because I was really interested to see which way this would go. Some people were online saying, I tell you what, if you're
yeah.
Joel
Some were
Glazer
worried.
or
Yeah,
Merkel,
some were worried.
he could have to step down from this. He could be
Hmm.
done. But then I think what Man United done is probably the right thing, and probably the thing that they should have done, which is assess actually how it went down. See that actually
Yeah, because it could be
we
seen as a
didn't
victory. It can be seen as a
100%.
victory.
We did not want to see this happen. We didn't want to see Richard going down there. Maybe Richard even called them and said, "Listen, there's some guys who've been tipped off that they're coming to my house. You might advise me to call the police and XYZ, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go down there.
Or
No,
he might
Richard,
have
don't
said,
think you should
like
do that.
he said, what would have Ed Woodward done? They'd have gone, oh, he'd have done this and that. He goes, well, I'm going to do the opposite.
100%, which everyone's commending him for. So the club, just to quickly say what they said, a spokesperson from the club said, Richard heard that a group of fans had gathered in a pub near his house. He went to meet them, bought them all a drink, listened to their views, and explained what the club is doing to deliver success on the pitch, improve the stadium, and strengthen engagement with fans. Now, that statement is proper PR. It's probably the right PR given what's happened. And also, when you look at the tweet, I think by the alleged group or guy who was saying
Yeah, I
they
think it's
had
one of
quite
the
not nice
fans.
things to
Yeah,
say. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they're saying, like, basically someone ratted us out. We were going to go protest outside his house, and he found out. But he did come down and speak to us. So if you think about, and they were saying, like, we didn't believe a word of what he's saying, it's PR spin. They had some not quite nice things to say about it. They basically wasn't buying it, the group who
Yeah.
actually did this, from what I saw from their accounts.
Yeah, or
Hopefully
at
that
least
was actually theirs.
or at least the vast majority of it they were saying we won't buy. But I think the
They were
general
saying, but
consensus
they said
was,
fair play for coming to
but
speak
fair
to us.
play. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I also saw a thread of one of the guys who was there allegedly. Hopefully that is his account, because you don't want to start saying it is or it isn't,
No.
but that's what it looked like to me. He was basically annoyed that people were just messaging him, asking him about Frankie de Jong, which proves, like, those guys there, it was a bigger thing what they were there for. It wasn't to find
Yeah,
out, are we
yeah.
going to sign Timber? Are we going to sign de Jong? It was a
It's
bigger
not
thing.
necessarily that. I think the thing they were sort of appreciative, I guess, of, even if they didn't buy what he said, a lot of it. I think the biggest thing was that there was dialogue, and there hasn't been before. I
Yeah.
think that's the point,
Yeah.
is that they're like, we had a conversation, we've never had a conversation. So, I guess maybe small steps. Now, you could argue that stuff like this can't and won't happen all the time. It won't. But who knows if it'll ever happen again? Maybe next time, it'll be like, well, last time I was recorded, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be doing that, whatever. But again, I think the general consensus is, well, there was some adversity. You faced it head on. I don't buy what you're saying, but I don't know. It's like, when someone, you really have big disagreements with someone, but you go, well, fair play for you sitting down in front of me. I still don't agree with
Yeah.
anything you said, but I respect that you came,
Yeah, mate, do you know what? I've had that a lot with people who, in the past, some of them might be watching. Well, no, they won't be watching now because they don't like YouTube and they don't like,
or
fan
you.
content. They were or me. But I actually have had a lot of experience with that, at match days or with some of the away lads, some of the lads who are, heads of some of these big groups, these fan groups that are, obviously anti-Glazers like we all are, but more anti-fan media and fan channels and stuff like that. Some I've not had some great conversations with, and it's not been great. A lot of them, I've had literally conversations like that where they leave shaking my hand, I shake their hand. We do actually disagree, but it was fine. But it's fine, and that's what it's about. You've got to be willing to speak to anyone. Let's get into some more of the quotes. I think let's the bit about the 200 million to spend. Because I
Yeah,
think that's
again,
very, very interesting. Because he's claiming that, like you said, money's not an issue. He says as long as the manager wants them, as long as we've done the due diligence to see that he's a great player.
mhm.
And then they start asking, well, is so and so done? Is Frankie? And he's like, do you want me signing the players? That sounds a little bit
Yeah,
like
this is
something else
yeah.
before.
So the quotes are when he was asked about Frankie de Jong, he said, "quote Money is not a consideration with who we want.
Big
It's
statement
if
that just
yeah
there, full stop. That's a big statement.
yeah." He said it's if the manager wants him that they've actually done the work on looking at if he's a great player. As you mentioned, do you want me buying the players? Doesn't that ring a bell? So basically,
Big
he's saying, look,
statement.
he's basically saying there, look, it's not an issue because there's been all this discussion about Frankie de Jong haggling or all that kind of stuff. And he was saying that it's a bit more complicated than that. Money's not an issue. He's also saying, look, we have done the due diligence in the sense of the manager's told me I want this player, so we're going after him. That's the situation. And he said, look, I'm not, why would I be signing the players? That kind of happened in the past. We had a CEO, director of football, transfer guru, who basically, as he said, burnt through cash and there's nothing to show for it. Doesn't that ring a
What's
bell? I'm
What
not
a
doing
line
that.
that is, we fucking burnt through cash. That just
Yeah,
sticks with me because it's like
but
it's basically
but
what we
he's
say all the
not
time.
wrong. He's
Exactly.
not wrong, as he mentioned, and as the pundits and fans and people inside football always say, Man United have spent more money on players than anyone in Europe over the past decade. And as he mentions, it's a good point. What have you got to show for
Unbelievable.
it?
Absolutely.
Can you show up to Carrington and go, where's that £1 billion that you spent? You can point out on the training pitch, but then you go, okay, the players, but then you go, okay, how many medals have they got? What have they won? Nothing. And he does come from a financial background, but from his perspective, he's thinking, actually, these people like Ed Woodward bought players for what he perceived to be commercial value. But in reality, there was no commercial value in them because in the long
Mm,
term, they didn't make any money because there was no success. United are worse off now. The share price is way lower than it's ever been. So those players they bought for commercial value weren't actually that commercial in the end. And I think
no,
his
literally
point
opposite.
being is that actually it's not a case of we do have money to spend on players, but also at the same time, I don't want to be burning through cash buying players if they're not the right players or not getting value for money. And at the same time, I still do have to have, and we need to have these improvements to keep up standards with other clubs around the world, like the stadium, like the training ground, and almost irrespective of if you've got owners that are willing to put their hands in the pockets, which of course our owners aren't. They take money out the club. But as he mentioned, when it came to like the stadium, he said Spurs have got like a $1 billion mortgage or something
Yeah,
on their
yeah.
stadium.
They
250
have to
million
send
on
the
a
games
training
to
ground.
NFL. You've got to get NFL in to help pay for it. Like you can't just get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. That's
But
what he
that's what
was
a good
saying. So
CEO does. Someone like Daniel
yeah,
Levy, that's what they secure the investment for
hmm
the asset. They secure the investment over a long period of time, sustained, solid period of time. And now look what Spurs are doing. They've got a brand new stadium, a world-class manager,
yeah.
over 150 million quid to spend, and look how they're moving now.
Exactly. And like you said, and they've got a deal with the NFL that all of the NFL games are at that stadium. How many concerts happen at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? How many
Yeah.
concerts happen at
Boxing.
Old Trafford? Yeah, boxing. How many concerts happen at Old Trafford nowadays? When was the last time you
Yeah.
had a big
Not
boxing
fit for
fight at
fucking
Old Trafford?
purpose.
Exactly. So those kind of, I think that was a good point he made there. But going back to the Frankie De Jong thing,
Mm.
I did
Do you
think
believe him?
again that they're working for the player. I think they're
No,
working
well,
hard for
that
the
is that.
player.
Yeah, no, that there's 200 million, and basically the managers give us his list, and we are working on it, and we're going to deliver it. Basically,
I believe
money's there.
that the money that the numbers that have been put out there, we've heard was at 120, 150, 200. I'm not sure there actually is a fixed number. And the reason I say that is because last year we at a drop of a hat spent more like 45 million on Ronaldo when that wasn't in the budget. I don't
Yeah.
know if there actually is a budget. I genuinely think they might have a rough idea, but I think when players come up, it's on a case by case basis. If they go, is that worth it? Okay.
Mm.
I think clearly Richard Arnold and certainly John Murtough, like he said, has been handed the list by Eric Ten Hag, and he's gone Frankie De Jong, and they've gone. What about everyone
Mm.
else? He goes Frankie De Jong first, then do everything else after. I don't
Which
care
reports
how long
after
it
have said that
takes.
as well.
Yeah, I don't care how long it takes. I know that I think he's priceless. I understand there might be some constraints. I understand value for money. I understand sins of the past, all that kind of stuff. Frankie De Jong. Everything else you can work out after. And I think he's kind of alluding to that. Like you, My only concern, well, one of my concerns coming out of that video last night is that Barcelona see that and go, you know, money's not a problem, is it? Then you won't have a problem paying
Yeah.
85 million euros because that's what we want. You know, the hand might have been forced a little bit here.
Yeah, exactly. Just on the back of what you were saying, I think it's Ed Draper from the Mirror, sorry, the Mail on Sunday, chief football writer for the Mail on Sunday. Off the back of that, he was basically reporting that Eric Ten Hag will be encouraged if Man United do bid for Frankie de Jong again this week and get the deal done, as the midfielder will be integral to United's new playing style, moving the ball as double pivot. Eric Ten Hag has plans to a fresh United bid for planned points to a fresh United bid, with Barcelona demanding 69 million pounds. And United have offered 56. Basically, he's holding out for the player, like you said there. He really, really wants him. I mean, my take on it, of the 200 million to spend, it as a fan, you want to hear it, but also as a fan, especially in our fan base, we have heard loads of things before, you know, and there does have to be an element of, listen, this is a massive soap opera. And I hate to take this stance, but this actually proves why, and I think I can speak for you a little bit as well, Owen. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. This proves why, from the start, even when it was really bad last few days, when we're getting down about it in Twitchy, we're like, let's step back and see what you deliver. Because we're seeing stuff in the media that, like you said, 1 minute it's 160, then it's 120, then it's 180, now it's 200. We're seeing link to this guy, link to that guy, and you're seeing that list that we were linked to all them players, which we say we get thrown about like idiots with the agents to get linked to players. Then a soap opera thing happens. The Pogba documentary is now dropping, and there's a few quotes out of that taking jibes. Then our CEO's down the pub with the fans. Anything can happen at Man United, so it's safer to go, do you know what? I'm sitting back here doing this. Just let me have a look. Let me just. Oh wow, Richard Arnold's in the pub. Oh, there's another one. Let me just watch from over here.
Yeah.
Oh, Pogba documentary. I'll watch from back here. So, oh, the leaks have left, have they? Well, the only players that have left are Juan Mata, Matic, Pogba, and Lingard, and
possibly Henderson's going soon.
And possibly Henderson's going soon. Out of those players, if you were down Paddy Power doing odds, I think they'll be stacked heavily in two players' favor.
Yeah,
personally.
they just got a lot shorter.
100% evens straight, like easily.
They might have suspended betting actually on that one.
100%. No, not even offering cash outs. Definitely suspended, because it's a certainty almost. You know what I mean? But we don't need to go into that. But we know. So when you hear the 200 million, in my opinion, I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, cool. You didn't really want to be in this position. You've owned it well, I think, considering your family, considering you don't really know what those guys were on. The guys who did that or were planning to do that can say we were going to go to his house and protest. If you're if you're Richard Arnold, you would be. I'm not saying these guys were, but you would be within your rights to go. Cool, the last time Man United fans rocked up at bloody Ed's house, it was a bit bloody hell. I'm going to try and handle it differently. I'm actually going to be quite brave, because I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know. Hopefully, these are reasonable guys that when I get there, offer them a beer and say, right, let's have a chat. They don't go off and say, no, you're just and just go mad. You don't know. But they didn't. And the video proves that them lads, they sat down. It was all calm. It was all respectful. And they handled it in the right way. Even though going to somebody's house to do that, you could argue, and validly so, isn't the right thing to do, going to someone's private space, personal space. So you can argue that, why are you doing that? But in the end, they didn't have to go to his house, because Richard Arnold was forced or decided that wasn't the best route to do. I do feel for him a little bit, though. I do. I'll say that. You can call me a Glazer this, a Glazer that. I think if you got any sense, you realize that I'm not saying that. This has nothing to do with the Glazers. I'm saying the human element of it, the human side of it, because he's still a human being.
He says that he's got a family, he's got kids, and
exactly.
And they got nothing to do with Man United.
Regardless of what you think of him, do you want them guys coming up knocking on you? Door, Dad, who's that outside? It's men outside. Come on, man. Exactly.
Shouting,
and, you know what I mean? And this only happens at Man United, where people think
exactly. And I'm all for the right to protest, and protesting outside the stadium, outside the shop,
It's
outside
working.
the
It's working. Look.
outside the training ground on a match day. Tours come out, whatever. Stuff that's associated with the club. That's fair game, right? But I look at it as, if I go into a restaurant and I'm not happy with the waiter service, I can go into the restaurant and say I wasn't happy with that waiter service. I'm never going to come here again. Blah blah blah. If I then go to their house and say, by the way, I'm really not happy with your service, that's a different, that's escalated quite a bit there. You know what I mean?
Imagine
you
that.
asked me for this.
Imagine you just like, oh, mate, the steak and chips. So yeah, I asked for medium rare. I just thought I'd come here to you.
Yeah.
I followed you home just to let you know.
You'd be like, yeah, you know what I mean? My steak was undercooked or whatever. You're in my driveway. Let's go.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, my kids are upstairs sleeping.
Exactly. I like you, don't feel comfortable with that. The sort of secret recording.
Do you feel a bit? I can ask you an honest question though.
Do it.
I agree with what you're saying, and feel free to ask me the same question. I'm not trying to stitch you up. Do you also feel a little bit guilty though? Because on the other hand, you're like, well, at least we've got a bit of communication. I'm glad that he's.
That's what I mean, and I get it, and that's why.
Didn't want it under them circumstances, but
that's why, as we were saying earlier, it's a really interesting incident, because there are so many different viewpoints, and I don't know how many of them are right or wrong. I really don't, because like you say, it's like the lesser of two evils. That is wrong, but then you go, but the stuff he was saying was quite good, or then you go, but the conversation that he had was quite good, or the way that he approached the fans, that was quite good. But
we almost needed to hear that.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
At this point, when we were feeling so low, it's like hearing the CEO. Let's take the setting out of it and the soap opera. Hearing the CEO saying, "We fucking burnt through cash, mate. I can't even go to Carrington and say, where's that money?" Yeah. To hear that honesty is one thing. To hear, look, do you want me buying the players? I'm not going to do things that way anymore. Yeah, that's refreshing.
Or someone going, oh yeah, the social media platforms are joke. He goes, oh, they're going. We're getting rid of those. That's going to change soon. You go, okay. He goes, what about the leaks in the dressing room? Some of those people aren't at the club anymore. You go, because that's what I was thinking. I was watching that video. I was like, I know he's a CEO and that's kind of his job, but he does have an answer for everything.
So what's that? I mean? And then this brings in the other side of it, because we're exploring all sorts. There are some people who think, like the guys who were there who were tweeting. I was reading their thread. So allegedly they were there. And
they're sort of canned PR reactions,
PR. He knew what we,
maybe,
it was all
maybe. Look, he's a senior figure in the club. I'm sure, like you said, I would be really surprised if he said, "I'm not calling anyone from the club. I'm just going to go down there." Like there's surely he must have consulted someone, whether it was a legal team, whether it's PR team, security people, like what situation am I going in? If anything, he probably should. It would be a wise thing to chat to somebody before he goes down there. And I'm sure part of it is the company line. Look, whenever anyone's off the clock, you still work for a company. You do. Everyone always toes the company line a little bit, is everything he said in that conversation 100% true? Highly unlikely. Let's be honest, highly unlikely. I'm sure there are certain things that he can't say or he's not going to say, whether it's professional courtesy or just, these aren't people he doesn't know at the end of the day.
Or making sure he doesn't get sacked. Because let's face it, when it got to the Glazer bit, I think that's where he carried himself the way that the only way a CEO who has a job, which they were saying in the tweets, he was protecting himself. Of course he is. He's not going to go on there, even though he was being privately recorded, so he could have been a bit more loose with his lips, but he was still smart enough to say, yeah, fucking Joel. I'm fed up with trying to talk to Joel, mate. He's a fucking idiot. He's this, he's that. He said, look, I can't speak for the owners. I know you guys don't like them, and I respect your opinion. You have to speak to them. He just left.
He didn't say and he didn't go like, oh, you're wrong for not liking them. He didn't say you're wrong for like. He just went, that's your decision, that's your thing. And maybe you have that conversation with them one day, as if that's going to ever happen. But but the point being is, like you said, he kind of sidestepped that one. And I think the way he came at it was that take the owners out of it, which is really difficult to do because they are systemic and they are the problem. But him sort of saying, like when it goes back to the training ground or when it goes back to the stadium, like he goes, like, that's why we need good relationship with sponsors, because otherwise that doesn't get done. And maybe he was alluding to in the past of, that my predecessor did have good relationship with sponsors, but all of that money he generated didn't go on other aspects of the club. It just went on, like I said, commercial players. And we are where we are now, where we had our worst Premier League season ever. The stadium's fallen apart. The training ground's rubbish. And we've got a group of players that are overpaid and overhyped. You know, we need to be better. We burnt through cash. We need to spend it better. And maybe that's, again, not what certain people want to hear, because we've got to the point in the transfer window already where we're like, just pay the money, pay the money, pay the money. But I think he's also sort of saying we have to be better when it comes to that. We can't do what we did in the past. But again, just that's one aspect to look at it as. Like, I've watched a video a couple of times now, and every single time, like, a different thought comes into my head of going,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was actually astonishing. I mean, like, we've broken down some of the more fan elements of it and how we feel as fans and what it means. But just to go back to it as a whole, I still can't believe what's happened. I just feel like, you know, only at Man United, when things are as bad as they get, every single time you allow yourself as a Man United fan to say, I think that's just going to be behind us now. You know, certain players have left, you know, the Pogba situation's over. You get the documentary. There's still some more.
This is
murmurs.
what's mad. Like, the Pogba situation, right? That's like 4 stories ago at this point. It was only the other day. That's like 4 stories ago. If that was any other club, that would still be in the headlines right now. That would still have, you know, ramifications and wave effects. Everyone's already moved on, because there have been like 3 or 4 things that have happened since then about Jong missing out on a player that we weren't actually going for, the CEO down the pub. And you're like, that's why I say it every day.
It just shows when you think it can't get any worse. Something always happens, and something will probably happen again. I don't know what it could be after this. You think, surely the CEO down the pub being secretly filmed, saying that we've got all this money and saying, yeah, you're right, we've burnt through cash, mate. Surely nothing else can happen, but it will. It will. And when it does, let's just be ready. Let's just hope we get the players. He spoke about, you know, he went to games, it was toxic, and you know, a lot of our players are young lads, and you know, wouldn't your confidence be fucking shot, is what he said. I take my kids to the games, and you know what it's like. The away fans are rowdy. You know, it's lively. I think he said was the word, lively, which they are. We've got amazing fans away from home. You know, he said we make sure we get our allocation, our 3,000 everywhere we go. Our traveling support is immense. What did you think about him basically saying, I've experienced it as well? Like, I know it's shit. Like, I've been in it.
Yeah, he said, quote, look, last season was an effing nightmare. It was a nightmare. And even he said, and to be fair, you could see it in those shots where you'd see him in the crowd towards the end of the season. He said, I was hating every game. And, you know, one thing he's definitely not is a good poker player, because it was plainly obvious. And I think that every Man United executive that was there, or every Man United fan that was at any of the games, no one was enjoying going to games. Everyone, not even the players. You could tell. Look at them.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't enjoying it being at the games. It was all just a complete mess. And it was a nightmare. You know, it's hardly a revolutionary statement or anything like that. I guess the thing that is just kind of at the back of your mind, or is a bit concerning, is just like, how do you come back from that? How do we like that? That is easier said than done. Of how does everyone start enjoying watching Man United again? You know, because that's one of the biggest tasks, irrespective of signings, irrespective of all. I think it's at the minimum. We just want to enjoy watching United games, or be excited going into United games. I can't recall experiencing a time like last season, where we would do previews or press conferences, and the game would be coming up, and you'd go like, oh, for God's sake, like there's another game this week, because you just knew, didn't you? And even if we would win the match, you knew, oh, I'm gonna have to sit through this match, and it's going to be just tedious to watch. It's going to be just dull, and I'm going to get angry, and you know, and that's a big task to fix as well.
What I'm just thinking about switching the conversation through to, okay, we've heard all this stuff, and it makes compelling reading when you read the articles in, you know, when they're written out. You know, like, I know you've been through some of these, but I'm just going to say something quickly, just as snapshots. We're doing everything we can to get Frankie de Jong, and I'm telling you, the money's there for him. Like, just when you just hear strong things like that, you know, it's,
if we miss out on him now, by the way,
that's what I was going to get onto, with all the things that he said, you know, the investment, let's think about the near future, which is now, though. So obviously the transfer window, the new manager, The new manager has the funds to spend. I'm telling you now, it's there. We're sorting out Frankie de Jong and his other targets. He's given us his list.
Yeah, giving us
We
a
end
list
up
and
with
we're going after him. Yeah, that was what he was
if
saying,
we,
wasn't it?
that is a strong statement. That isn't, we'll see how we go. It's a tough economic climate. Try and even wheel in that post-COVID thing. I'm not saying that he should have used that. I'm just saying, let's just say he tried to slime his way through it. We'll have to see how it goes. No. Whether he said it out of pressure, whether he said it out of because it's true, or whether he lied, I don't know. We'll soon find out which one it was. But to say that in front of those fans, and now it's got out to the world, is a big statement. If we don't have a strong transfer window now, everybody, and they would have been entitled anyway because of the shit season we had, but even more so now, is entitled to absolutely hit the roof, hit the floor, go off.
Yeah,
Go off.
absolutely. And that's just what I was saying earlier on, is that irrespective of, I guess, the moral aspect of him being filmed, is that is now an historic. It's an historic article, you know.
Yeah.
And if stuff doesn't happen in the immediate future, like you said, Frankie de Jong, players in the window, etc., in the long term, stadium, training ground facilities, social media, which I guess is kind of a short term one that can get resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then or the leaks, you know, then you say, well, we've got you on video here saying X, Y, Z was going to happen, and it hasn't. So, you know, these words, I guess, you know, as I say quite a lot, half of the equation. Now it comes to, in the immediate future, so we have to see what he is saying, basically. And again, maybe that goes to clearly he didn't know he was being filmed at the time. How much of that do you think he would have said if he knew he was being filmed?
And that's what I mean. If they didn't go to his house and force that, it would never have happened.
If he knew he was being filmed, do you think he says our officials in Barcelona for Frankie de Jong?
No way. He doesn't say we fucking. You can tell he doesn't know. We obviously, it's clear as day he doesn't know he's been filmed. The thing's under the table and it's shaky as hell. And he's swearing and stuff as well. Like, he just wouldn't do that. He wouldn't say, mate, we fucking burnt through cash. That's that one just sticky.
Well, and also, like, when he kept talking about the leakers, he doesn't go, well, they're not at the club anymore.
Yeah,
because you don't do that.
You're just saying exactly who it can only be a maximum of 4 players, then, isn't it? Who's left? 4. Is it 4? Yeah, and Dean Henderson might be the 5th. But he said they've already left the club, so it's not even Dean Henderson. If you go with what he's saying, it could only be Pogba, Lingard, Mata, or Matic. And who's your money on?
Yeah, or Cavani.
Sorry, actually Cavani. Cavani don't even bloody speak English.
No.
Oh, Matador. Well, you never know though. But, still,
all of these leaked stories coming out in Spanish, which is odd.
Yeah. And I just feel like there's another picture of it's like where all the lads aren't really looking, and then there's just a picture of Richard Arnold just looking like that. And I'm like,
yeah, I like that one.
He probably, when he got home and saw that it was all over the thing, he probably thought, fuck. Or do you think,
I was going to say, I think he had probably had the same reaction.
There's a chance that he could have been recorded?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't think so. I think maybe. I mean, again, it depends on who he spoke with before. What do you think he thought? Because I think if he spoke to people, they would say, look, be careful what you say, because irrespective if it's recorded or not, people will remember. At the very least, they're going
to go tell everyone.
They'll put this stuff on social media. So maybe he thought that could be a possibility. I think the reaction to it as well is his reaction might have been very similar to a lot of people when they see it and he goes, fuck, I was being recorded. And then you see the reaction and you see what he says. He would have watched the videos as well. He would have gone, not too bad, actually. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
He's actually come out.
And the reaction today, and he might have been like, actually, you know what? It worked out.
So in summary form, then, if we're kind of just rounding this off, would you say that in a mad way, this has actually been a positive thing? Or has this been another soap opera, typical Man United, what's going on?
No doubt it's a soap opera. No doubt. That was my initial reaction. It still was my reaction now, because, again, what other clubs does this happen at? You know, let's be honest. That doesn't change. And the circumstances in which the whole conversation led to happen is still, to me, just wild. But I would say, if you'd have asked him today, Richard Arnold, like, did that did that go as well as it probably could have? He'd have probably gone, "Oh, there's some things I wish that aren't out there, i.e. the Frankie de Jong stuff. But you know what? Considering the circumstances, that probably went as well as it could have gone. And, considering the reaction, there are people today, I
Very
would say,
positive.
there are people today on social media that probably like Richard Arnold more than they did yesterday, or at least know who he is. And we're talking about patience or benefit of the doubt, or whatever. He might have earned it from some people. From a lot of people, probably not. It doesn't matter what he said yesterday. They still don't buy it. And like you said, PR stuff. And I do agree partially that some of the stuff he was said, he was still towing the company line, because you always will. But I think he probably would say, you know what? I think it went all right, actually, in the end. And like I said, the biggest thing now is that lives, and he's got to back it up now. What do you think? What do you think his reaction would be today?
I think his reaction will be, yeah, considering how it could have gone, I'm actually getting, a little bit of respect. I think any man who decides to deal with football fans in that way, who are about to come to your house, deserves a little bit of respect. My only thing is that at the back of my head, I'm like, will it be enough? Will it be enough? Because I think he means well, or he's come out looking okay, but this is still under the Glazers, man.
Do you think it?
This is,
Do you think it leads to anything more in the future? I.e., like Richard Arnold and people like the club look at it and say, okay, why can't we have that in a
I
more
was thinking about this.
United controlled setting, i.e., and go,
100%.
and because that could work out in our favor a little bit more. Like, I wouldn't
100%.
be shocked if they go, you know what? I know we have those fan meetings or whatever, but they're always
Yeah.
private, and you hear about it weeks after the fact or whatever. Maybe
Yeah.
they just go, yeah, you know what? I mean, we could do something with that. This is kind of
Yeah,
worked out all right.
they would they would have to work out what that really looks like and how you invite people to it without
And how much
fan
they
groups.
control it,
Because all that would, and how much they control it, versus if they don't have enough control over it, it could fucking get stupid. Because
Yeah.
those fans were actually quite sensible once they'd got him to come down and behave themselves. If it gets bigger and more organized and more people get invited,
And people do talk
you
about
then run the
PR then.
risk of, you talk about PR because then it's
How does it
planned.
turn into a press conference as opposed to a back and forth debate?
Do you see what I'm saying? And then versus trusting fans not to be idiots and overstep the mark, which those fans didn't do.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult one, but there has to be some scope in terms of direct line and communication to be learnt from it, because Ed Woodward was there for 10 years, done one where he sat in front of the cameras. I remember that one you were talking about.
Yeah.
Was that
It was right at the
before
beginning.
LVG?
No, it was
Or was
right
it,
at the beginning. I think it
or
might be
was it
David
right
Moyes'.
before David Moyes? Yeah.
I think it was like the first interview of our new CEO, and that's when he
Yeah.
just came across
He
as
was,
like
and
we're
he
the
was
richest club in
basically
the world.
giving it big, and he was that in that interview. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's that, and then obviously down the line it just got progressively worse. The Glazers shut themselves after the Super League, gave it the whole "we're going to do this, we're going to do that," didn't do shit, which was expected. When Joel Glazer wrote that open letter, didn't he? Other than that, he's been in America just chilling. So there is something to be learned, but I do think, the general consensus is that people have been forthcoming in saying, you know what, he's definitely got a bit more of my respect. Do I believe everything that he says in terms of will it happen? Again, we have to say we've got no evidence to say, well, he said it, so we're going to get De Jong. There is 200 million. We're going to invest. We will. You can't say that because he himself is still operating under the Glazers, and we know what the Glazers do. So you can't be that naive. But I do think the general consensus has probably been right. The human element wasn't nice. It really wasn't. I do feel for him with that. So I respect him for that. But you do have to commend the way that he took it upon himself, even though it was forced, because there's no way he was going to put out on his Twitter or make an announcement saying, anyone feel free to join me down the pub. I'll be down there in 10 minutes. Anyone wants to have a chat about Man United. Of course he wasn't. He was forced to have to do that because, like, even the people who planned it were saying, someone ratted us out. He found out. So they were pissed off about that because they wanted to get to his house and apply pressure. This is the question I think we should leave everybody with, and you can answer it. What would that video or that footage have looked like at his doorstep?
Oh, way worse.
Knock,
Way
knock, knock.
worse.
We're here, Richard. You know, what have you got to say? Where's the funds? Where's this? Where's the on?
Irrespective if he came out or not, just the
Police would
videos
have
of
got called.
them, just the videos of them outside and all that kind of stuff. You know, it would have been
hidden their identity, probably would have been masked up just because they don't want it, you know.
So it would have been far worse. So again, I think in terms of the way that it happened, the way it did play out was probably the best way that it could have, you know. And I think it also does go to show that, like you mentioned, for what was starting off as something maybe not unsavory, but like you said, maybe when you talk about boundaries and how far you were going to overstep them, it turned into somewhat of a refreshing dialogue and discord. And that's and I think that's what they would say. I mean, I can't speak for them clearly, but that's all that a lot of people want is dialogue. Initially, I mean, the long term is to obviously get the Glazed out the club, etc. But initially, you know, like we were saying, for the last like decade or so, or longer, it's just been met with silence. So I think that maybe that's also why everyone's so like, well, fair play, because we don't hear anything usually. So
yeah,
you know, that itself is a bit of a win.
I think with this Richard Arnold thing, I just think you have to take in all context. I don't think you should be saying. I think it's a bit closed-minded to say, "Oh, F off, man. They're just PR things. Look at this. It's a load of crap. He's got some beers. They met him down the pub. I'm not buying any of it." I don't think you should be all the way that side. Equally, there's no way you should be like, "Well, you know what? I knew the club had a plan. I knew they were changing after Ed Woodward, and this proves it." Wouldn't say that either, because this was not meant to happen. This happened out of pressure. This happened out of the best way of managing the situation that was safe for him and his family, at the same time at being able to get some good PR out of it and be honest with and portray to be honest with the fans. It looks like, for Richard Arnold's sake, he's managed to do that, and then the club have doubled down, and the club have then come and backed up that instance with the PR of saying Richard heard that some fans were planning to meet with him or something like that. Not that he got tipped off that they were on his way to his house. He decided to meet them and buy them all drinks. And yeah, that was lovely. He knew he was going to go down. No, that's just them owning the narrative, because that's what the PR team do. That's what your job is. So, but in there was enough refreshing stuff for us to be like, do you know what? Cool. Do you know what I mean? Let's see. You've now actually put more pressure on yourself. You have. You've got this little grace period where everyone for the next couple of days will be like, fair play, man. At least he came down. That was tough. But make Frankie de Jong still not be here in a week.
Exactly.
Pressure, you know.
But come the end of the transfer window, if you get Frankie de Jong and a couple other players, people go, tell you what, fair play.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So there you go, guys. Compelling show. I still can't believe it happened.
There's so much scope to talk about as well. We could talk about for 3 hours on this, honestly.
Yeah, but I just think it's important to make your own conclusions. Look at it from all aspects. Don't get caught in any hysteria, and come to your own point of view on it. We've covered it. I think that will be the end of it now, until Murto's caught coming back at the airport out the departures lounge and start saying some mad stuff.
Caught in a tapas bar in Barcelona.
Murto's high off the sangria, bro.
We're looking for Frankie.
Buzzing off the sangria, man. Just talking up the things, just letting it out, loose lips. I don't know. We'll see. That's probably what's next. But guys, anyone coming to the 100K party later on, see you there. Can't wait. Starts at 7. I'm really looking forward to it. Loads of tickets sold, even over I don't want to keep saying over the capacity, because that sounds really like it, But due to high demand, we've released more tickets, and even they're nearly gone. So it's going to be really exciting. I can't wait for everyone to come down. And our next video will be very, very exciting for you guys as well. Can't wait for you guys to see it. You're really going to enjoy it. Really going to enjoy it. Really going to enjoy it. Smash a like on the video. Remember, you can join the United View Members Club as well, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are out of here. Peace.